Hello fellow coffee botherers, I'm Kev from coffeeblog.co.uk and in this video I'm going to be reviewing the DeLonghi Dedica E685. So in my last video I reviewed the Grand Gadget, and the reason I'm now reviewing the DeLonghi Dedica is, in my humble opinion, price-wise, below the likes of the Sage Bambino Plus and the Gadget Classic Pro. There's really only these two machines, in my humble opinion, the DeLonghi Dedica E685 and the Grand Gadget, are a bit cheaper than the other machines, the Sage Bambino Plus and the Gadget Classic Pro, that are worth looking at in terms of first home barista machines. There are quite a few sub £100 espresso machines that I could talk about as well, but ex-world barista champion James Hoffman has quite recently done a video on sub £100 espresso machines, so I would recommend that you watch that video. There's no point in me trying to replicate what James Hoffman has done with that video, so I'll put a link to that video here so you can have a look at the sub £100 machines that he's reviewed. But I'm talking about the DeLonghi Dedica in this video, and in the last video the Grand Gadget, because in my humble opinion these are probably, as far as I'm aware, the only two machines that are worth looking at before you start getting to the sort of £400 upwards mark. If you think I'm wrong, and if you think there is another machine at this kind of price, sort of £100 to £200, that I should be looking at, that I should be talking about, please let me know in the comments below and I will get hold of one and review that as well. So as with the Grand Gadget, this is a 15 bar machine. It's got 15 bars of pump pressure. And as I wrote about recently in my blog post about 15 bar espresso machines at coffeeblog.co.uk, being a 15 bar machine isn't really something to brag about, but it is something that manufacturers of domestic espresso machines use as a selling point. And I've had people ask before, when I've reviewed 9 bar machines, why would you pay more for a 9 bar machine? You can get 15 bar machines cheaper. So some people are of the opinion that the more pressure the better, so that you should go for a 15 bar machine, but it isn't like that at all. Most cheaper espresso machines are 15 bar machines, and mainly that's because they use pressurized baskets, and the 15 bars of pressure works better with the pressurized baskets. And pressurized baskets are designed to get better results regardless of the grind. They're designed to use with pre-ground coffee or using a grinder that can't really grind fine enough for espresso. But as I've said in other videos and blog posts, pressured baskets do a much better job visually than they do in terms of taste. They create crema, but they don't necessarily create the taste that you would expect with that crema. So crema is usually a positive side effect of perfectly dialing in and getting the extraction perfect. But with pressured baskets, that crema is created in a different way. So the crema itself doesn't necessarily correlate to the way that it'll taste. It might look the part, but it might not taste the part. And a lot of that is down to the coffee you use, but I'll talk more about that shortly. Having said that, to be fair to pressured baskets and machines that use pressurised baskets, when I've done blind taste tests in the past, you might have watched a couple of them videos in which I've done blind tasting with pressured baskets versus non-pressured baskets. When I've used the same high quality, freshly roasted specialty coffee beans, both freshly ground via standard non-pressured baskets and pre-ground via pressured baskets, using the exact same high quality specialty coffee beans, I preferred the taste of the coffee via the standard basket, but using freshly roasted quality coffee beans, the espresso via the pre-ground and the pressured basket was drinkable. The other one was better. It wasn't that the one that I did via pre-ground coffee and pressured baskets was horrible and I couldn't drink it, and the one via freshly ground and standard baskets was amazing. What I've said in other videos, and I'll say again here, is if you're using a machine like this, using a 15 bar machine with pressured baskets, it's fine if you're using decent quality, freshly roasted coffee beans. I always think you're going to get better results from grinding fresh, but still, even via pre-ground, if it's decent quality coffee pre-ground, you're going to be okay. So anyway, we've established that the DeLonghi Dedica, like most cheaper espresso machines is a 15 bar machine with a pressurised portafilter or pressurised basket. The Dedica has a 1 litre water tank, which is here. Fairly easy to take off and refill. It has a cup warmer, which you have to say isn't very warm, slightly warm, tepid I'd say, I can keep my hand on it. It has a Panorama steam wand, got a drip tray, obviously, and the portafilter on the DeLonghi Dedica is a 51mm portafilter. The difference between this and the Grand Gageur when it comes to how it's pressured is that the DeLonghi has a pressured basket while the Grand Gageur has a pressured portafilter and the basket in it is standard. Which means with this machine you could just get hold of a standard non-pressured basket and use it with this portafilter. But what you can get with this machine, and I'll talk about that shortly, is a bottomless portafilter that will actually fit the Dedica, which I'll get to in a minute. Price wise, the RRP of the Dedica I think is $220, but regardless of the RRP, it's usually available for about $190, I think it's $189 on Amazon and Argos. I actually bought this one from the Curry's PC World eBay outlet where they sell their damaged box goods, and I got it for £143.10, which is a very specific price to sell a machine for, but it's interesting to note that I paid £143.10 for it and there was a tiny little bit of damage to the box. There was absolutely nothing wrong with the machine at all, even the internal packaging was all intact, and it was only a small little bit of damage to the box, but they appear to sell machines that have got slight damage to the box via their eBay outlet. I've had a look at this eBay outlet for other products from Curry's PC World, and they seem to have loads of deals on there, really good deals on there for things like TVs and other stuff that you associate with Curry's PC World. So I'll put a link in the description below to that, as I said, to their damaged box eBay outlet. So anyway, with all that said, let's try using the DeLonghi Dedica. Just before I start using the Dedica, I want to show you some of the grinders that would commonly be used with this machine. So if you're using the pressure basket, you could go for a cheaper machine such as the DeLonghi grinder or the Krups Expert, even this little blade grinder thing here. And actually, I would normally emphatically advise against blade grinders because you can't grind something with a blade, you can only smash, slice and obliterate coffee beans with a blade. But having said that, James Hoffman, and I know I'm talking about James Hoffman again, he does publish some really good videos, and he's recently published a really interesting one about how to get better quality grinding from a blade grinder. So I'll put a link to that here, and if your budget is really low, like 20-25 quid, and you need to use a blade grinder, then have a watch of James Hoffman's video. But these are about 40-50 quid and they're burr grinders, and I'd normally recommend these over something like a blade grinder. They're not amazing, they're not really easy to use, they're a bit of a pain when it comes to getting the coffee from these things into the portafilter. They don't really tend to go fine enough for using without a pressured portafilter, but with the DeLonghi there is actually a mod you can do to bring the burrs closer together. As I say, these are sort of 40-50 quid. A grinder I've not got here at the moment but I have reviewed in the past is the Iberital MC2, which is a little bit cheaper than this. This is a Sage Smart Grinder Pro, which I've had for 4 or 5 years. There is a slightly cheaper version of this, the Sage Dose Control Pro, and it's almost the same grinder, just that this has got the LCD display and grind adjustment. This machine, the Sage Smart Grinder Pro, really user friendly, really beginner friendly, dead easy to use. And there's also the Niche Zero, which I spoke about quite a bit. And if you go to coffeeblog.co.uk/NZ, I've written a review post on the Zero. There's also a review video here that I've done of the Niche Zero, and that is an amazing grinder. I'm not going to use the Niche Zero for this DeLonghi Dedica review because I would imagine that the majority of people using a sub £200 espresso machine are probably not going to be using the likes of the Niche Zero, which is about £500. Some might do, and there is an argument to say that you'd be better off investing in something like the Niche Zero, spending a lot more money on your grinder and starting off with a cheaper espresso machine and then keeping the grinder and upgrading your machines. And something like the Niche Zero is going to last you for a long time and will be more than adequate for most espresso machines that you might go for in the future. But I'm going to make the assumption that a lot of people spending between £100 and £200 on an espresso machine are probably going to want to spend a similar amount on a grinder. So in today's video I'm going to use the Sage Smart Grinder Pro. Now if you go to coffeeblog.co.uk/grinders, you can find information on all of these grinders. And if you want more information specifically about the Sage Smart Grinder Pro, go to coffeeblog.co.uk/SGP. So with pressured portafilters or pressured baskets, you don't need to worry much about the grind, you don't need to dial in, doesn't really make much difference. I'm using the Barista Smart Scale 2, by the way. I'll put a link in the description below to that. Not a cheap set of scales, about 80 quid. You can get much cheaper scales for 10, 20, 30 quid, but they're nothing like up to the Barista in terms of accuracy and sort of lack of latency or delay, and also ease of use, how responsive the buttons are, etc. One of the great things about these scales is they're rechargeable just via a sort of Android charger cable that goes in there. And I probably used these scales for about 2 or 3 months before I needed to plug them in for the first time, and they don't take long at all to charge. They last a long time on a single charge, so that's a very positive thing. But anyway, this is a review of the DeLonghi Dedica, not the Barista Smart Scale, so shut up, Kev. This is a Tamper Scoop that comes with the machine. You tend to get something like this with most inexpensive machines, as opposed to a proper Tamper. I've got about 16 grams in there, just under, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get any more in that little basket. I could use this that comes with it, but I happen to have this, which is a proper Tamper. This is a 51mm Tamper that I bought to use with the Lapavoni Europicola, and it just so happens to fit. I'm not going to put too much effort into tamping because I'm using a pressured basket. All I'm going to try and do is make sure it's level. I suppose I should tell you that the on button is here on the side on the Dedica, by the way. Pull the shot, you can press it to start and press it to stop, or you can use it as a volumetric button and just press it and let it stop when it stops. 16 grams in, so I'm going to go for 1 to 2 extraction. So I want 32 grams out. I'm not going to time it. It doesn't really matter how long it takes using pressured baskets. There's nothing you can really do about the flow. It's all in the pressured basket. So I'm just going to weigh it. So we're looking for about 32 grams. There we go, pretty good looking espresso, nice crema, but you're going to get that with a pressured basket regardless of whether it tastes as good as it looks, because of the way that pressured baskets work. As I said before, crema is normally a sign of a perfectly extracted shot, whereas it's not quite the case with pressured baskets. You're going to get crema regardless. I'll give it a taste. Not the best tasting espresso I've ever had, but it's drinkable. I wouldn't pull my nose up at that and think that is absolutely disgusting. It's drinkable, but it is decent, freshly roasted specialty coffee beans from a small batch roaster. So there we go, that's pulling a shot. Next thing to do is to try steaming milk. And I'm going to start off steaming milk with the Panorama on, because somebody's asked me in the comments from a previous video, they've asked me to do that with the DeLonghi Dedica, so I'll do one using the Panorama, and then I'll do another one without using the Panorama. Press the steam button, turn the steam on. Steam button should flash a few times and then go solid, indicating that it's reached steam temp. And then we'll just purge like that, and then shove the Panorama into the milk. I've got it down to the cappuccino position, by the way, rather than up to hot milk. And then the Panorama should just leave it in to do its thing, which is usually fairly thick, dry, spoonable foam, which is fine if that's what you want. If you like really dry cappuccino, it's fairly quiet. You can hear that knocking from the thermo block, but it's not loud. It's fairly quick as well. We're up to 60, and I'll stop it just before 65. Wipe the Panorama. We've got quite dry, thick foam. Won't be able to do latte art with it. That's not really what Panorama ones are for. Need a spoon. And that's really what Panorama ones are all about, which is this dry, stiff foam for cappuccino. I'm also going to just try the Panorama up to the hot milk position and see if that makes any difference, see if we get micro foam that we can use for flat white and that we can pour latte art with. I doubt it, actually. I'm sceptical that we'll be able to get latte art from a Panorama even up to this hot milk position, but let's see what the difference is anyway. I have to say this cup warmer has got warmer, it has got hotter as I've been using the machine. And we're about 60, about 65, so this isn't actually that bad in terms of texture. It might even pour, so let's see. That's definitely the best latte art I've ever got from a Panorama steam one. In fact, I'd say it's the only latte art I've ever got from a Panorama steam one. So if you put the black ring to the hot milk position, it will actually create fairly good. It's still a little bit dry, still a little bit stiff, but you can still pour latte art with it with a bit of practice. I'd still call this a cappuccino. Let me just try it. Not bad. I'd still call it a cappuccino. It is separate to the coffee. You know, you've got quite a dry foam, or drier foam than you want with flat white or latte. But I'm impressed that I was able to pour latte art from milk steamed, stretched via a Panorama steam one. I've never been able to do that before. Next we're going to try steaming without the Panorama by turning this round and pulling it off. Yeah, that ripping paper sound, that's what I'm looking for. The rubber pipe popped off. One sec. It was a bit unexpected. The rubber pipe came off. Now I might not have put it back on properly because I accidentally pulled it off before. It was all going far too well. Seems to be unsecure. Let's try that again. But unfortunately, it appears that on the Dedica, the fact that I'm now covered in milk and the machine's covered in milk tells me that removing the Panorama and using the rubber tube underneath isn't going to work. It keeps coming off. So you'd have to do some kind of a mod to stop that from happening. So going back to Espresso, I mentioned earlier that you can get bottomless portafilters for the DeLonghi Dedica, and I have one of them right here, as you can see. So what's good about this is, first of all, it's a standard basket. So it isn't pressured, it's just a normal basket. And the other thing that's good is that because it's naked or bottomless, as they're known, you can see exactly what's going on underneath. So you can see if you're getting things like channeling, and channeling is where there's a channel in the puck of coffee and the water will find the path of least resistance, and the coffee around that channel will be partly under extracted, partly over extracted. Channeling is one of the most common causes of poor tasting espresso, and having a bottomless portafilter helps you to see if you're getting channeling, helps you to see what's happening in the basket, and it's quite nice to look at as well. I'll put a link in the description below to this particular bottomless portafilter for Dedica, because there's a couple, and the other one, I know because I bought it, only has 2 of these tabs, so it does not fit the Dedica. This one, I had to return the other one. This one I bought from a different firm via Amazon has got the 3 tabs, and it does fit this machine. So I'll put a link in the description below to this. They're about, I think, 30 quid, but quite nice looking actually. A walnut handle. So let's have a go now at using this bottomless portafilter with the Dedica. So we can get a better shot of under the bottomless portafilter. I'm going to remove the drip tray, which you can do on this machine, which reveals another tray. It's not a drip tray, but it's a tray to stand your cup on. See that? That steam water coming through, that shows got some channeling. Do that again and see if we can find a way to eliminate that. Okay, so by the way, that didn't taste very good at all. It tasted worse actually than with the pressured portafilter, and you can see why. There was a lot of channeling going on there. So I've ground again, I've gone slightly finer with the grind, and I'm using 18 grams. Again, I could get 18 grams in this basket quite easily. There's still some channeling, you can see it. Better now. Much better now. But there was a little bit of channeling to begin with. That was better, but there was still a little bit of channeling to begin with, and then it calmed down. So let's try this one. Actually tastes quite good, definitely better than the last one. And the body, I would say, is just a little bit better than with the pressured portafilter. But I would like to think we'll be able to get better than that, be able to get rid of that channeling. Now, whether the channeling is happening just because it's a 15 bar machine going through a standard basket, I'm not sure. That's definitely better. Try it again. Better. We tamped a bit firmer that time. I was very careful to get the tamper level. Again, it looks good, and this isn't with a pressured portafilter. Remember, this is with a standard basket. And crema looks good. More importantly, That's the best one so far. Definitely better than the first one with the bottomless portafilter. It's had a lot of channeling. A bit better than the last one. Definitely the best one so far. And that to me does taste better than with the pressured portafilter. So there we have it. You've seen me use the DeLonghi Dedica, and as you can see, I was able to get fairly good tasting espresso via the pressured basket, the pressured portafilter, without any effort, with decent coffee beans. Tasted okay. With the bottomless portafilter, with the standard basket, I was able to get, eventually with a bit of effort, was able to get better results, a better tasted shot. Okay, I didn't do any blind testing, but believe me, that last shot that I did with the bottomless portafilter definitely tasted better than any of the other shots. Definitely tasted better than the shots pulled with the pressured portafilter. But that wasn't without a bit of effort. With the bottomless portafilter, we were getting channeling. You could see jets of pressured water coming through the coffee and actually all over the camera lens. I had to quickly wipe that off. But you could see we were getting channeling, and you could see I had to work on the grind, work on the tamp. When it comes to steaming milk, as you saw, with this black ring set to, I didn't think this would make much difference to be honest, but I was proved wrong. With this set to cappuccino, this black ring here, set to cappuccino, we got fairly stiff, fairly dry foam for dry cappuccino. And when I put that up to hot milk, it was actually pourable in terms of latte art. As you saw, that's the first time I've ever been able to pour latte art via a Panorama one. I've never done that before. I was impressed with that. What I wasn't as impressed with, unfortunately, as you saw, when I tried to use the steam pipe inside, which you can normally use as single hole steam tip ones with machines that have a Panorama, but with this there's a rubber pipe inside which comes off easily under steam pressure. I'm assuming that you would be able to mod this somehow. I'm sure there's somebody out there who's done it so that it doesn't come off, or to put something else on to use as a steam pipe. It was working really well, to the point that it popped off, scared me and splashed me with milk. So other things about this machine that I've noticed as I've used it, as I said earlier, this cup warmer got hotter as I was using it. It started off really tepid and I thought, well, that's not going to do much, but actually it did get warmer as I was using it. The drip tray isn't a bad size, and it's pretty impressive that you can take that off and you've got another tray underneath which you can use for putting taller cups on. To begin with, I found using the steam a little bit confusing because I've not read the instructions, but you basically just press the steam button, it'll blink, and then it'll go solid, which means it's ready to start using it, and then you press one of the buttons to take it out of steam, and the buttons will blink. At that point, if you purge water out of the steam wand, cool it down a bit, that'll stop, and then you can use the machine again. You can pull another shot. It's a really small machine. The footprint, as you can see, is tiny, so it'll fit on any small kitchen worktop where space is at a premium. Fairly easy to use, heats up really quick, pretty easy to make fairly good tasting espresso using the pressured portafilter or the pressured basket that comes with it. But again, as long as you use decent coffee beans, and the fact that you can up your espresso game by getting a bottomless portafilter or by just getting a non-pressured basket to use with the portafilter that comes with it. That's a plus if you want to do that, if you want to improve your espresso. And bear in mind there is some investment in that because you need to dial in. You can't just stick coffee in the portafilter or in the basket like you can with a pressured basket if you're using a standard basket. You have to dial in, which means wasting coffee and investing time. So what do I think of the Dedica? Well, for 189 quid if you're buying one new, on one hand I think it's good value for money for this machine, but the one thing I can't get out of my head with this machine at 189 quid is that the Sage Bambino Plus that I've done quite a few videos about, and it's a really popular machine. It's a 9-bar machine that comes with, now, didn't used to be, now comes with standard baskets as well as pressured baskets. That is single wall baskets and dual wall baskets. Sage will rather call them dual wall as opposed to calling them pressured baskets, which is the same thing. And at the moment, the Bambino Plus is $399, which is the RRP, but a lot of the time you can get them cheaper. And the cheapest I've seen them for is, well, the cheapest I've seen them for is about $220, but I've seen on Price Spy, I don't know if you've seen that website, but I've seen that it has been available for as little as $190. Not often, but it has been. So the fact that you can sometimes get the Sage Bambino Plus, which is a really, really good espresso machine for the money, for close to what this costs. If it were me personally, I'd probably sit on my hands, keep my wallet firmly in my pocket until a machine like the Bambino Plus came on offer, rather than spending 190 quid on this machine. I don't want to take away from this machine. It is a decent little machine, I think, for the cost, but it's just that, you know, occasionally you can get the Bambino Plus for close to what this is new. And in my humble opinion, the Bambino Plus is definitely a better machine in many different ways. It's a 9-bar machine. It's a really, really user-friendly, beginner-friendly espresso machine, and I would use that in a heartbeat over this machine personally. At 400 quid versus 190 quid, fair enough. But you can get this machine cheaper as well. As I said, I got this one for £143.10. The other thing to say is you can get these used quite often for 60, 70 quid on eBay, and for that money I think this is a really, really good machine, a really good value for money for that kind of cash. You can get the Cayer Classic, the older Cayer Classics, on eBay as well, but they tend to hold the value a bit more depending on the year, depending on the model. You probably pay 120 to 150 quid, sometimes more, for the Cayer Classic used, which is still good value because them machines will go on for years and years if they're looked after and maintained. So in the next video I'm going to do a comparison of the Dedica versus the Grand Cayer next to each other, using them both at the same time. Let's see what we find out there, doing a bit of blind tasting, etc. That's it for now, because it's getting dark. As you can see in the studio, there's shadows all over the place. If you like this video, please click the like button. Thank you very much. And if you've not subscribed to my channel, click this image around here somewhere to subscribe to my channel. Tatty bye. Go to coffeeblog.co.uk/.